Good morning, everyone. So, I'm here to tell you about this dream that I had this morning. And then, when I've described it, I'll go into the significance of it. I haven't had an important dream for a while, so very excited to share this with you. So, let me go back into the dream. So, I'm in a community. It's a community I was in a long time ago. And a baby arrives in this community. And I take a great interest in the baby. And gradually spending more and more of my time with the baby. And the main thing that I'm focusing on is feeding the baby. And what I do is I put some of the baby's food into my mouth and I chew it. And then I take the chewed food and give it to the baby. And as time goes on, I become more and more experimental about this. Kimchi, for example, I get kimchi. I don't give the kimchi directly to the baby. I put a little bit of it in the mouth, chew it up a little bit, give it to the baby. And then I go outside and I find wild foods and I chew those up a little bit. And I don't even bother giving the wild food to the baby. I just give the baby a little tiny bit of my saliva that's been chewing that wild food, because wild food, as you know, are very strong. And the people in the community get a bit pissed off with me because I'm spending so much time with the baby. I'm not doing my work. They don't like that. And that is pretty much the dream. And from that you could go, what? Well, I'm very grateful because I've spent many years, decades actually, working with my dreams. I used to make dream diaries about 20, 25 years, something like that. And I would have the dream diary next to the bed with a pen and an access of putting on the light or lighting a candle. And I would wake up with a dream, write the dream down. So with that background, it's very easy for me to interpret dreams. So what happened is I had a conversation with a good friend last night, and it was to do with a family member who was unwell. And when I woke up this morning, I instantly related this dream to the person. So what I'm going to do now, I don't usually do this, but I'm going to go to my notes because I want to make sure I've got all the information. Right, so let's go back to the dream, because there was something else that happened in the dream which is also highly significant, which is that as my bond developed with the baby, I noticed that the baby's intelligence increased rapidly, and there came a particular point when the baby, at an age which was far too young by conventional standards, uttered her first sentence, and it was amazing. All of us in the community were amazed. And to me, that is possibly one of the most significant things about the dream. So, I've been making films, I've been doing a lot of shamanic work, journeying to the microbiome and the mitochondria. So the microbiome is all the microbes that actually make up who I am and who you are. So we're made of hundreds of billions of cells, as you know, but we're made of far more than hundreds of billions of microbes. And so it's these microbes that are really the feature of that dream. So that was the obvious thing. So what I was doing is, first of all, by putting food into my mouth and giving it to the baby, it meant that the fantastic microbiodiversity that I'd built up, I've read research accounts that say you are having, a healthy person's got more than 500 different species of microbe in the microbiome. And when you think about a person's had antibiotics and they have a probiotic, well, if they're really unlucky, they're going to get one microbe, Lactobacillus bulgaricus most likely. If they're very lucky, they might get up to 14. And of course, that's absolutely nothing compared with what we need. So I reckon this 500 is a very, very great underestimate. And I would suggest to you that anyone who's in a really good state of health, you've got just an incredible number of species of microbes. So what I'm doing by taking the food, putting it into my mouth, chewing it for a few moments and taking and give it to the baby, my microbiome is being added to the biodiversity of that young one. And that's very much all to do with increased health. The greater biodiversity we've got in our microbes, in our microbiome, that is going to be the degree to which we've got resilience. I'm speaking about emotional resilience to stress, physical resilience to toxins and pollution, and good old glowing health. So this is what the dream is about. So then I'm going to just have a look here. So that was the important little detail I mentioned. Right, so I was told to share this dream with the person that I had a chat with last night, and I'm being told that this is a prescription for people who are suffering from being unwell, especially if this unwellness has lasted for any length of time. Because let's face it, one of the things that tends to happen to people when they become unwell for a longer period of time is they don't tend to have so much energy, which means it's more difficult for them to go out. Now here's a really crucial point. The people that need to go out most of all are the people that are unwell. Because if they're unwell, what they need to do is they need to increase the biodiversity of their microbiome. And one of the best ways to do this is to go outside into nature. And actually it is so simple, because all they need to do really is to breathe. I take it to the next level, and when I go out I lick a leaf which is above the height where a dog could wee on the plant. And I've made a film called Have You Ever Kissed a Bluebell? So I'm really into a physical interaction with wild nature and wild plants particularly. This is all so helpful for regaining our health. So in the situation of a person who's been unwell for a long period of time, take them out into wild nature, get them out of the car. If they are not able to move around, just get them out of the car into a seat of some kind and just get them to breathe the air. And I don't mean by the side of the road where you've got all the pollution from the cars, I mean actually the good quality air in the nature. This is going to make an incredible difference to that person's health prognosis. But what about the people who've got family and loved ones and they're unwell and they're too ill to go out? Well, I've already given the answer, because by going out into wild nature and taking some wild plants and then going back home and putting the wild plant, obviously it's a plant which is healthy and safe for human beings, not a toxic one. You're not going to be putting belladonna or deadly nightshade or woody nightshade into your mouth. You can use your common sense. So you do need to know your plants, but when you choose an oak leaf or whatever it is that's healthy and just a little bit of a chew, then what you want to do is you want to give that saliva to the loved one and get it into their mouth. And by hook or by crook, I would say personally, because this is a person's life we're talking about, so you might want to put that little bit of saliva onto just a spoonful of rice or vegetables or soup or whatever you've done. You basically get the wonderful microbes from wild nature. You pass them through your mouth where they become augmented and actually made safe and in alignment with your microbiome, and out of there into their body, and that's going to increase into their mouth, that's going to increase their microbiodiversity of their microbiome, which I would suggest to you is one of the fundamental things about getting well or getting ill. So let's go to the really harsh part of this film. Supposing we're talking about a person who has been taking antibiotics or chemotherapy. Well, antibiotic means anti-life, which is against life. Chemotherapy is a cytotoxic compound, which means cytotoxic kills cells. So chemotherapy, antibiotics, these are anti-life. So the best thing you can do is to not take them. That really does go without saying pretty much, but I've said it. And if the person has been taking those, then a real effort needs to be made to recolonize the microbiome. It's very important. And research in relatively recent times has shown that even when a person is taking a substance like an antibiotic, it's still very beneficial to actually feed the microbiome by the methods I'm alluding to. So it's a little bit of wild food that's gone into the mouth of somebody with a bit of saliva, or a little bit of kimchi or other fermented food, or your normal food that you eat, preferably organic, and get that into the unwell person. That is going to help enormously, and is going to improve their prognosis beyond the ability of you perhaps to fully realize. And it's all makes so much sense from my perspective, having spent these weeks journeying and being tuned into my microbiome and my mitochondria. Haven't really said much about mitochondria in this film, but just to say that inside every one of your cells there are some microbes which have very specially adapted themselves. We're talking about, this is a long time ago, so this isn't an evolutionary journey, so they've, over a long period of time, they've adapted to living inside the human cells, and they are actually what gives us our ability to access energy, because food gets digested into glucose and we breathe in oxygen. So the glucose plus the oxygen in the mitochondria, that is actually what releases the energy and enables us to function. Another little thing, which is that when a person is unwell for a long period of time, what often tends to happen is they don't move so much. Keeping moving is an incredibly important part of being healthy and staying healthy. So if you've been sitting down for 20 to 30 minutes, get up, just move around maybe for 10-15 seconds and sit back down again if that's your job. That will help you enormously too. Right, so let me have a final little look to see what I can see from this. Yeah, do this regardless of what other people think, because this could literally save someone's life. It's really important that it's only this way around, which is the healthy person is providing a little bit of chewed up food to the sick person. You would never want to do that the other way around. It's very important to realise that, especially as a bit of wild food, a bit of fermented food, and passing it through your microbiome is augmenting and harmonising and balancing the effects of that strong food. Yeah, so this is what I needed to mention. A strong kimchi could be too much for a person that's very unwell, so even more important, giving them that food being augmented through your own saliva. So let's just go into the bigger picture. Indigenous tribes have done this forever. All babies get raised by giving little fragments of the food from the adult's mouth to the baby, and this is so well known. There's a whole strand of alternative parenting, continuum concept. Wow, I got it, didn't know I was going to get it. The continuum concept is where people bring up their babies in the West and they treat the babies the way the tribe treats the babies, and they carry them on them all the time, and they do all this stuff, and they take the food out of their mouths. They're doing that because they're making incredibly strong, healthy babies into incredibly strong, healthy children with really powerful microbiodiversity in their microbiomes. So what I'm suggesting is not as off the wall as it might sound. It's bog standard normal in all traditional societies, and the continuum concept parents have been doing this for decades. So there we go. Anything else? One last thing I got, which is, in the case of a person that's chronically unwell, and if you're very healthy and you go out into nature a lot, one of the simplest things you can do, lick your finger, put it onto the unwell person's lips and get them to just touch that finger with your tongue. That is the most immediate way for them to increase their microbiodiversity. It really can be that simple. So great love to you all. I'm on my 2 weeks voluntary, what do they call it, voluntary something or other, losing the plot with the words now, voluntary quarantine, that's it. So you ain't going to be seeing any films from me outside, not for a while yet. So thank you very much.